Talk to me. How do HELOCs work, actually? I'm very interested in this. How do HELOC works?
HELOC is an acronym. Okay. Home Equity Line of Credit. So a lot of people who bank with TD, Scotia, all those banks, they have lines of credit already approved. That's what's called an unsecured line of credit. So it's not attached to anything. It's just attached to your personal name. A home equity line of credit is the same concept, but it's secured against your property. They use your property as collateral.
As collateral,
right?
Gotcha.
And the reason why that's better in a lot of cases is because the rate is a lot cheaper. Because there's less risk for the bank. If you have an unsecured line of credit for $20,000, you use it, and then you go to Colombia and you never come back.
Yeah.
They're not going to have any way to get that money back. Right. But if you do it on a HELOC and you go to Colombia, they're going to take over your property and get the money. So, for example, rates on a HELOC right now are at around anywhere between 4.95 to 5.45% variable. Unsecured, you can reach easily double digits, 10, no problem.
But what's stopping somebody then from picking up a property, right? And that property obviously going up in equity, for example, right? I had a buddy who picked up a condo, pre-construction condo, back in, I want to say, at the height of the pandemic, 2021-ish, if I recall, when the market was hot. If you remember that, a lot of things were getting flipped at that time. And he picked up that property and it was pre-construction. So, over time and during the period in which they were building it, it went up in value. So now it being turnkey, ready to go, he's got give or take around 150,000 in equity there. So now if he goes into that property and he applies for a HELOC, what percentage of that equity do they give him as a HELOC, or is it the whole thing? Like exactly how does that work? And then to follow that up as well is, can you then technically use that HELOC, home equity line of credit, to put a down payment on a separate property?
Great question. Very common thing that happened, especially when the market went up crazy, is people paid, let's say, $500,000 for the property. On closing, it's worth $600,000 or $700,000. We don't see that a lot now, but in those cases, a lot of people went for a quick flip. They assigned it before they closed. A lot of people closed and then held it. They closed and then took the money out. But to answer your question, on closing, most banks will give you money based on what you agreed to pay for it, the $500,000, 80% of that. After closing, if you get an appraisal that says it's worth $700,000, they'll give you up to 80% of whatever it's worth.
So hold on. So you're saying it's 80% of the total value of the property, not of the equity in the property?
Of the value. Correct.
Really? So if I have $1 million property, they can give me up to 80%. What is the general medium though? Or what are we talking here? It's like, because you're saying up to 80%, up to is the key word here, right? So what is the average? They usually give 50%,
They give 80, no problem. On some banks on rentals, they'll reduce it to 75. Some banks on condos, because the condo market is a little bit slow right now, they'll reduce it. But generally speaking, if it's a good property and you qualify with your income, 80%, no problem.
Really? So if I got $1 million property, they can give me an $800,000 home equity line of credit?
Yes. But you have to have a good reason for it, though.
No, well, of course, right? But my question then would be, wouldn't that defeat the purpose of the title in it of itself, which is home equity line of credit? Because it's no longer the equity. Now it's just the entire value of the property.
No, it's 80%.
It's not but it's not just the profit that you've made off the property, because that's what the equity is, right? The equity is, if I buy a house for $500,000 and it's valued at $1 million, my equity is $500,000 because that's how much I've profited off of it.
Equity is as simple as property value minus whatever you owe on it. If you have $1 million home, free and clear, your equity is $1 million.
Okay.
If you have $1 million home and you have a $300,000 mortgage, your equity is $700,000.
Got you. So it's just the difference between owing and essentially what you have, what the value is.
Exactly. So home equity line of credit is using the equity to secure line of credit.
And that's what they give you 80% of.
They give you 80% of the value.
Right. 80% of the value. No, but see, that's still not adding up, because you're saying it's 80% of the value. But if it's the difference between the mortgage and the value, wouldn't it be 80% of that difference?
I'll give you an example. Yeah. You have a home that's worth $1 million.
Okay.
You have a $300,000 mortgage.
Okay.
80% of the $1 million home is $800,000.
Yes.
800,000 minus 300,000 is $500,000 left you have. So between a mortgage and a line of credit, both, you can have 5 mortgages. It cannot exceed 80%. So if you go to a lender and you say, I want a second mortgage, they're going to say, okay, we're going to look at your first mortgage. We're going to look at the value. We're only going to give you a combined loan to value of